MCU's latest spin-off show, Marvel Zombies, not only brought back an entire roster full of famous superheroes and villains, but also turned them into mindless zombies before brutally killing them off. I mean, nothing was more scarring than seeing a half-bodied, zombified Captain America get absolutely smashed like a tomato. Apart from killing off almost every superhero we've known and loved through the years, Marvel Zombies also introduced a version of Hulk who might just be the most powerful being to ever exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Infinity label has long been tied to Thanos and the Infinity Stones, but now it's being used to introduce Hulk, who's not only stronger than ever, but also visually distinct. It almost felt like everything we've seen Bruce Banner go through in the MCU was leading up to his fate as seen in the Marvel Zombies. His transformation not only changes his color, but also his size, powers, and abilities, as he is now overflowing with the power of the Infinity Stones. So without wasting another moment, let's take a gander at how Bruce Banner saved the world from tearing apart by absorbing the power of the Infinity Stones and becoming the ultimate Infinity Hulk. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Hulk was one of the last few survivors in the zombie apocalypse. For those who don't know, Bruce Banner was actually first seen in What If Season 1, Episode 5, which introduced us to the world slowly becoming enslaved by the quantum virus brought in by Hank Pym after he got infected by his wife, Janet Van Dyne, who was stuck in the quantum realm. Unfortunately, a zombie version of Hank made it back to Earth, and that's how gradually the world became an undead empire of chaos. As the quantum virus spread rapidly, the Avengers were some of the first to fall to it because one bite from even a normal zombie is more than enough to turn you into an undead being. Since they could retain all of their powers even after becoming a zombie, it wasn't long before the entire world succumbed to the disease. Now, the introduction of this reality first came when Bruce Banner careened to Earth after the Hulk lost a battle to Thanos in the Asgardian refugee ship. Basically, in 2018, Banner came crashing back to Earth through the Bifrost, slamming straight into the New York sanctum and leaving a gaping hole in the staircase. Shaken and back in human form, he stumbled through the building, trying to warn Doctor Strange and Wong that Thanos was on his way. But the sanctum was strangely empty, except for the cloak of levitation drifting around on its own. After grabbing some clothes to cover himself, Banner stepped out into the city, only to find the streets unnervingly silent and deserted. His unease quickly turned to dread when Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian arrived. Desperate, he tried to summon the Hulk, but the Green Giant refused to come out. As Maw taunted him about his impending death, salvation seemed to arrive when Strange, Wong, and Tony Stark suddenly appeared. Banner felt a surge of relief, until it turned into horror as he watched the three heroes ruthlessly kill Maw and Obsidian right in front of him by tearing them apart with their teeth. Eventually, when the dust cleared, Banner's worst fears were confirmed, because Doctor Strange, Wong, and Tony Stark weren't saviors at all. They were zombies. To make matters worse, they had already turned Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian into the undead as well. Stark then charged up a blast aimed right at Banner, but the cloak of levitation swooped in, knocking him off balance just in time. When Banner tried to run, Zombie Wong got to him, and just when it looked like he was finished, the cloak yanked Wong into a portal and sliced his head clean off. Banner barely had time to process the gruesome sight before Maw pinned him down, ready to feast. But suddenly, an army of ants swarmed in, tearing through the zombies. Turns out, Wasp decapitated Stark and even had a giant ant chow down on his head, leaving Banner horrified in disgust. Wasp then barked at him to follow, saying he needed to come with her if he wanted to live. Before he could say anything else, Spider-Man swung onto the scene, scooping Banner up in his webbing. A traumatized Banner begged the kid not to eat him, but Spider-Man calmly reassured him as they soared across the ruined city toward the Resistance's base. After they reached the base, Peter showed his zombie apocalypse orientation video to Banner before being visited by Okoye, who had come in search of her king. She also explained that her team had received a beacon over the wires, and so they decided to travel to Camp Lahai in search for a potential cure to the world's current predicament. After traveling to Camp Lehigh, Banner, Okoye, Peter Parker, Bucky Barnes, and Kurt Gorster were met by Vision and Scott Lang's head. But while exploring the facility, Banner realized they were not the first visitors to come here. That's when Vision mentioned how he wished they hadn't come at all. Banner responded by asking what the camp was, only to find out from T'Challa what Vision was doing. He then explained to Banner and the others that due to Wanda Maximoff being zombified and rejecting the Mind Stone treatment, he'd been keeping her there as he couldn't bear the thought of killing her. Right after the discovery, Maximoff revealed herself to have been free due to Barnes having shot her cell and then proceeded to eat Gorster alive. After witnessing what an uncontrollable menace she had become, Banner eventually convinced Vision to help them leave, and so he blasted the roof open to help them escape. However, Okoye was telekinetically stopped by the zombified Wanda Maximoff, and so everyone had to leave her behind as Scarlet Witch turned her. Bucky Barnes also stayed back to buy Banner and the others some time as he attempted to shoot Maximoff. But now that her chaos magic had binded with the quantum virus, Wanda was unstoppable. She simply used her powers to throw Barnes away and went after Banner, attempting to infect him by biting his arm. However, Hulk briefly popped out of Banner by hardening his arm and saving him. Now, Banner knew that it would be impossible for them to escape without a fight, so he gave Peter Parker the Mind Stone before running over to the zombies. As he ran straight into the horde, Banner forced Hulk to completely come out and engage Maximoff in battle, thus buying Parker, Scott Lang, and T'Challa enough time to escape. How did Bruce Banner transform into the Infinity Hulk? So Hulk eventually managed to get away from Wanda, while Spider-Man, Scott, and T'Challa traveled to Wakanda in the hope of finding a cure to the quantum virus using their resources. But right outside Wakanda, they're met by a zombified version of Thanos, who was waiting for them just so that he could make a play for the Mind Stone, so he could complete the Infinity Gauntlet. Even Thor, Groot, and Rocket Raccoon did not stand a chance against Thanos' might. He reduced Groot to ashes, turned Rocket into a calcified skull, and left Thor's face scarred to an extent that he would go numb for the next 5 years. Ultimately, it was T'Challa who sacrificed himself to destroy Thanos and prevent him from acquiring all 6 of the Infinity Stones. As zombie Thanos and T'Challa fell into the molten vibranium core, it killed them both but saved the universe. However, the Infinity Stones shattered and released a storm of unrestrained infinity energy as a consequence that nearly killed Peter and Scott before the sorcerers of Kamar-Taj saved them. Meanwhile, the infinity energy from the shattered stones raged unchecked across the globe, and the rogue power was too much for the world to take in without having been completely destroyed. Without any other option left, the people at Kamar-Taj proposed Hulk to contain all the loose power and save the world from cracking in half. So, with the help of the protection spells casted by the masters of the mystic arts, a gamma-overloaded Hulk walked straight into the pit, brimming with unchecked infinity energy, and began absorbing it all. He compressed so much energy within himself that Hulk acquired a new form, thus becoming an anchor tying the power of the Infinity Stones within him. Now, we know the power of all 6 Infinity Stones is just too much for anyone to bear, but because Hulk was the only one powerful enough to contain such vast energy, it definitely didn't destroy him, and instead created the Infinity Hulk. He was no longer the old Bruce or his other green half, but an elevated anchor trying to keep the world from breaking apart. But 5 years after the start of the apocalypse, a zombified Wanda Maximoff managed to fully regain her consciousness and take control over her reality warping powers. Unlike any other superpowered being who had become a mindless zombie, Wanda apparently connected with her inner self to take control of her mind, thus overriding the virus inside her body. In fact, now she used her chaos magic to bind it with the quantum virus, which made her even more powerful than before. Soon she began controlling almost every zombie on the planet and became the Queen of the Dead. Even though we see zombified glimpses of her, we know that Wanda kept the illusion intact till she could manipulate her way into taking control of the world. Eventually, we find out that Scarlet Witch basically plans to reshape reality in her own image, and to do so, she needs to siphon the power of the Infinity Stones from Hulk. She also explicitly required Kamala Khan's powers in order to amplify her ability to remake the world in her own vision. That's when she rallied her never horde of zombies to attack Infinity Hulk, so she could finally absorb the power of the stones within her. Despite the efforts of all the masters of the mystic arts, Spider-Man, Scott Lang, Shang-Chi, Katie Chen, Valkyrie, Blade Knight, and Kamala Khan, Wanda's army took most of them down. Even though Hulk crushed Zombie Thor and fought off most of the attacks, his skin began to crack, thus tiring him out easily from having to bear the burden of such a vast energy for such a long time. Finally, after convincing Kamala into giving up, Scarlet Witch placed her hand on Hulk and began siphoning off all the Infinity Stone powers. She then used Kamala as a conduit to channel the power of the stones so it doesn't take a toll on her. We know that the power of the Infinity Stones is too much for one being to take, but by using Kamala as a source to channel it, Wanda could actually create an illusion of a restored and seemingly peaceful world. But what really happens to Hulk after the energy is taken out of him is left hanging at the end of Marvel Zombies. Why could Hulk's infinity power not help him win over the Queen of the Dead? Since the events preceding Marvel Zombies took place concurrently with Infinity War in the MCU, the Hulk was still the other guy to Banner, as he had not been able to reconcile the two halves of his being into Professor Hulk as seen in Endgame. Whether the Hulk knew it or not, absorbing the Infinity Stone's energy would make him powerful. But he was still reeling from his defeat from Thanos because that was the first time the Hulk lost a fight. So despite all of his power, he chose to stay in Wakanda and not try to fight the zombie horde. Instead, he just wanted to be left alone. Well, that was until he had to become the world's savior as the Infinity Hulk and become a glowing, multicolored version of the hero who was no longer entirely himself, but rather a cipher anchoring the immense destructive energy of the stones. Visually, the Infinity Hulk is unlike any iteration we've seen before, as his body constantly glows with radiant cosmic energy after his form infused with the fractured essence of the Infinity Stones. But now, his power mirrors his new design, which makes him immeasurable, devastating, and nearly unstoppable. Still, he lost to Wanda Maximoff. Why? Well, Kamala Khan and her friends joined the surviving sorcerers of Kamar Taj to protect Infinity Hulk from Wanda. After the Nova Corps proved it would be of no help to Earth, her main goal became preventing the zombie Scarlet Witch from amassing Hulk's power. In a way, they were trying to help the Nova Corps in their mission, which was to keep the zombie plague confined to Earth because with the power of the Infinity Stones, Wanda could easily destroy the Nova Corps and spread the quantum virus across the galaxy and beyond. On the other hand, the Hulk was already indestructible, and the addition of Infinity Stone energy made him even more powerful. With mere gestures, we saw how Infinity Hulk wiped out dozens and dozens of the zombie horde. The power he contained seemed limitless, which only racked up the massive abilities he already had before absorbing the raw cosmic energy of the stones. But there are still a good few arguments against the idea that the Hulk and the power of the Infinity Stones combined are an unstoppable mixture. You have to understand that without the proper resources to plan, strategize, or deploy the individual powers granted by the stones, the Hulk is still just reacting to what happens to him. At the end of the day, the savage form of the Hulk is not exactly aggressive, at least in an offensive sense. Rather, he reacts to whatever stress causes Bruce Banner to transform, whether it's General Ross and the Army or the Scarlet Witch's freaky mind games. Still, even the raw and unfocused power the Infinity Hulk controls is enough to stop most threats. That's why we see Wanda bring every zombie under her control to this ultimate face-off, and as you know, the onslaught of these powered attacks aimed at the Infinity Hulk definitely has some effect on him. With every zombie attacking him, his skin splits wherever he was injured, but instead of blood, there was just bright, white, powerful light oozing out. The other heroes definitely tried to help, but they proved to be ultimately no match for the raw numbers and powerful zombies serving the Scarlet Witch. What further complicates matters is how Scarlet Witch and Hulk both have powers enhanced by the Infinity Stones. If you remember, Wanda had some natural magical abilities, as WandaVision revealed, but the Mind Stone activated and even enhanced them. This is why she was able to almost single-handedly take out Thanos in Infinity War. So while Infinity Hulk could wipe out swathes of the zombie horde with little more than a thought, Wanda's own Infinity Stone-enhanced powers definitely provided her some kind of protection. It may also be why she was capable of taking a weakened Infinity Hulk's powers just by a simple touch after the former Green Goliath was still recovering from his mega battle with Zombie Thor. We also see how Hulk was tired after fighting hordes of zombies attacking him and needed the other heroes to help him buy some time so he could just take a breather and allow his cuts to heal. Meaning, even if he did have crazy regenerative abilities, Infinity Hulk still needed some time to jump back to his pristine form. So despite all the power contained in Infinity Hulk, he needed time to recharge after crushing Thor's skull, thus giving Wanda the perfect window to collect her dues. Moreover, as director Brian Andrews pointed out, the Hulk is still the dull creature who could easily mollywop a god, but also lacked the intelligence, strategy, or even a desire to fight. This only calls back to something Stan Lee had said about the constant questioning he would get on which Marvel character would win in a fight against this or that. As he had said, there's only one simple answer to all of that, as the person who would win in a fight is the person that the scriptwriter wants to win, because at the end of the day, these are fictitious characters. So just because the Infinity Hulk lost to the zombie Scarlet Witch and her horde, it doesn't mean she's more powerful than him. In terms of raw ability, Infinity Hulk may have been able to decimate her and her forces if he were a little smarter, a little luckier, or had a pure desire to destroy her. Still, whatever the reason, now that the zombie Scarlet Witch has taken on his powers, it makes her the most powerful being in the MCU multiverse, thus probing the possibility of every reality being at a high risk. Honestly, if you ask me, Infinity Hulk would have never lost to Wanda if this were the comics instead of the MCU. But that's just my 2 cents. What do you guys think about MCU's depiction of Infinity Hulk? Let us know about your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.